Hello, I am Dr. Tanya Jones, and welcome to Raising Your Genius. Now, sorry, but I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the genius of your child, specifically your young child, very young child, 0 to 5, maybe 6 years old, children in the early childhood range. I am so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm really hoping that it's something that's going to grow and people are going to want to come and watch, and I'm going to add value and support to you. This program is for parents, and that's new parents, old parents, grandparents, people that are working with helping to support and raise young children. We have minimized the childhood years for so long, and I think it's time that we understand the wonderful work and the many opportunities that are happening at this time. My goal for this program is to provide factual information about early childhood. Tell you some stuff, what's coming, what happens, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And we're going to share experiences. I am a parent, and I've done some dumb things. I think I've done some good things, but it's all about sharing and understanding this phase of children's lives. I want to provide you some online resources. I'm not talking about TikTok. I'm talking about universities and think tanks and people that are all about early childhood, magazines, and just whatever I think that might be helpful to you. I've got some friends, people that I know in early childhood that have agreed to be on the program and to have a conversation and interview. So I'm hoping that that's also going to add value to you as well. Like I said, I am a parent and I have a large family, meaning more than five. And as I have been thinking about my children, I can say with little bias that I have great kids. I really do. I have wonderful children. That didn't mean they were perfect. I'm not perfect. They're not perfect. And we had our issues. But for the most part, they were great kids. I have some smart kids, things I would consider to be smart, gifted. Um, I have some average, I would consider average intelligence based on, testing that we've done, that they've done in schools. I had some really great athletes, children that all, you know, just have rhythm. I have children that I would consider to be musically inclined. Mm, artistic, maybe a little, not as much. I have a sensitive child. Oh my gosh. When he came around, whoo, that was different. And I have a child that I could just dump in any situation, no heads up. You can handle this. I had children that were very vocal, and I had a child that was very kinesthetic, meaning used his hands. I have a child that had behavior concerns. That was not fun. That was not fun at all. It was difficult. It was just difficult. And my very last child, a daughter, had a physical disability. She had Down syndrome. So, that opened up a completely whole new world to me when I was born with a child that had medical issues, physical issues, mental issues, social issues. Shush. And so, just from my family, my experiences have been very varied. And I learned quickly as I was going along that I couldn't treat them the same. Even in this group, I had to individualize so many things. And so that just made my experiences, very diverse. I wouldn't say hard, but kept me on my toes for sure. Now, people have asked me, the few that know about this, because I tend to be a little quiet and reserved, and I haven't blasted it on Facebook or told a lot of people about this opportunity, but the few that I've talked to have asked me, why are you doing this? And how did this come to being? Well, that's a really great question. That's a really great question. Um, my childhood was great. My mother and father had 9 children, and my parents were um, educated. They went to college, and I didn't realize what a special thing that was. And so, even though it was 9 of us, 9 kids, it was a hot mess in so many ways. I had a great childhood. I did. I grew up in the inner city in Indianapolis. So, hand-me-downs, a station wagon, big Christmases, big Thanksgiving dinners, all of that stuff, playing in the street, that was my life. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Even though I was poor, middle class for sure. My dad was a school teacher, and that provided a steady income, but he was a plumber, and I think we lived and survived because he did plumbing as well. My mother could have been a teacher, but my dad insisted that she stay home. And I have lots of stories that she would tell about how she would try to sneak out and go get a job, and he would not. But just no. So anyway, my mother was home, and so she never learned to drive, and so she was always home. But that was such a foundation and such a part of my life that I could go home and know that she was there. But I just had a wonderful life, and I kind of wanted the same for my family. So early on, I decided that if I had the opportunity, I would stay home with my kids. That was something that was my personal decision. Now, I still went to college, and I was not in early childhood. I got a job. I worked my undergraduate was in engineering. hmm I was a chemical engineer of all things. I'm not ashamed to say that was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I did graduate by the skin of my teeth. I graduated and I got a job in a refinery, and I met my husband, and we got married, and my family started very quickly. Um, 5 days before our first anniversary, I had a baby. hmm I didn't prepare for that. I didn't think it would happen so quickly. Dumb. Just didn't think. So I have a family. I started with a daughter, and then it seemed that every 2 years, every 18 months, I had another child. So this early childhood realm began, and I stayed in it. I stayed in it. I have 2 children born on the same day, 2 years apart. And I was going for a third. I was going to have 3 children born on the same day, 2 years apart. But the doctor messed me up on that one. But anyway, so yeah, a large family. And my last daughter was the one that put me on a different course. She was born with Down syndrome. And so that opened up a completely new world to me. Up until that time, my kids were all healthy, normal developing. Um, like I said, or maybe did I say, I have kids I consider to be intelligent and talented. And then all of a sudden, I have a child that's, as we said, and back in the old days, handicapped. And everything was difficult. Everything was difficult. I mean, she couldn't suck, she couldn't nurse, she basically couldn't eat, and wobbly and no muscle tone. And it just was wow. And so I thought, okay, I dealt with these children, but what about her? What am I going to do with her? So very quickly, I decided that I needed to go back to school. And so as a result of her birth, I discovered the world of early childhood education in a much deeper way. I'd never considered education before. And at this time, there was a new degree in our state called IECE, Interdisciplinary Early Childhood Education. Now, two things were happening at the same time. she's my ninth baby. And even though my husband had a good job, he was an engineer, we have 9 children. So I'm like, so I know I needed to get a job now. I mean, and I knew at one point in time I would go back to work. There was never a problem. I just wanted to be home for those formative years. And so now I have a child that's going to require a lot more work, a lot more energy, dedication, and focus. And then I still have a large family. So it just came together for me. That I would go into early childhood education primarily for her. And also, a lot of other things worked for me. You know, I'd be off in summer times, when they were off, I was off. Um, God provides. Now, something else was happening too. Like I said, I had 9 children, and I knew I needed to go back to work to help support. And I remember I made this large chart and I put everybody's name on it and the year. And so I knew when school started what grade every child was going to be in. After I created this chart, I could see the future. I could see how many kids I was going to have in college, how many children I was going to have in high school, and that meant soccer and football and basketball, how many children I was going to have in middle school and in elementary, which is plays and PTO. I mean, I could see my whole life before me with this chart. And so by doing that, it helped me to plan because you really do have to plan. If you have kids, you got to plan. So when I made that chart, I knew that I had 5 years. In 5 years, I must have a job because I knew I needed to help my husband with college and tuition and in our family, our children have the opportunity through our church to go on missions. And so if any of our children opted to do that, that's going to be missions I need to pay for and all this other stuff. And so I had to think about all those things. So I went back to school and got a master's in interdisciplinary early childhood education. And then I started getting little small jobs, kind of freelance work. And by year 5, I had a job in a preschool. And it was kind of a hot mess because now I'm a working mom. Oh my gosh. Kudos. And I bow to your eminence, working mothers. And I really hate that term because if you're a mother, you're working. But I hope you understand what I'm saying. You have this duplicity where you're working and you're working. Okay. Whew, that was hard. That really was hard. And I also realized that there was really not a good time for me not to be home with my kids. I thought by the time everybody was in school, everybody's okay. And I realized that wasn't true. My kids were used to me coming up, being home, and they missed me, and they would come home and dump all their thoughts and experiences. I wasn't home, so it was a tremendous transition for my family. But anyway, so I'm working in Head Start, and so now I'm in a preschool classroom. And it was a little different, very different from my home, even though I kind of had schools. Many times in summertime, I would have school at home. And we had chores and we had responsibilities and you had lessons, you had stuff. I did all that stuff with my kids, but it was still a different experience altogether. So I'm in a classroom and I stayed there for several years. And then I moved up and became an educator. I'm sorry, an administrator. And I loved it. After being home for 20 years, 20 years, I love being in the school system. I love the camaraderie. I'm other professional women and collaborate and talk. I loved it. And then when I became an administrator in our preschool, I love that too. And then at this time, I had all this experience that I would share with and help other teachers be great teachers. It was a wonderful experience for me. Now, I admit that then my eyes got big and I wanted to be, other things and move into the school system and do this and do that. That didn't happen for me. And it was kind of disappointing. It really was. I ended up getting a doctorate degree but it's in administration. So, yes, I am Dr. Tanya Jones, but it's not in early childhood. It's in, school administration. So I really can't count some of that stuff. It was wonderful, and I miss it. I was fascinated about organizing, administering to children in schools, but I stayed in early childhood, and that really has become a large part of me. So this program is to help parents. And so now as I'm an administrator in this preschool, I'm helping my teachers to help, get their children ready for kindergarten. That was our job. And man, it started getting really hard. And our scores, because we would have to assess our children at the beginning of the year and in the middle of the year and at the end of the year. And it was harder because the trend was that they came in not as prepared as they should have been. And you would think, prepared for preschool? Well, yeah, there are things you children should hear and have experienced coming into preschool. If we're saying, okay, we're gonna count, and so where are we gonna count? So one and they don't say two. Come on now. So we started seeing these things, and children couldn't count and didn't know any colors and didn't know any letters and weren't familiar with the ABC song and just general knowledge of the world and how to hold a book. And uh, I had children that didn't really know their name. They had grown up with nicknames. Understand that? That's cute. I get that. I get that. But children should know their name, and they should know if they're a girl or they're a boy. And there's just certain things we expect children to know coming into preschool. So we're having to teach these preschool prerequisites, I just more stuff we have to cover. And so my idea was to have a class for parents. And did that one year, but I retired. hmm I'm retired from the school system. And so I look at my 20 years in the classroom, well, no, 20 years in preschool at home, and then 20 years in the school system, I have 40 years of experience. And it's those things that I'm bringing to this program. So I'm hoping it'll be fun. I'm hoping I have a good time. That's my goal because I hope you can tell that I can be kind of silly, at least fun. But my goal is to help parents to raise the genius in their child. Because yes, the brain, oh my gosh, there's not a computer on the earth that can replicate what the brain does. Now I understand artificial intelligence is coming, and I might eat my words on that. But right now, and we need to do better with capitalizing on those first 5 years. And my goal is to help parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, anyone working with young children to do that. Again, I'm Dr. Tanya Jones, and welcome to Raising Your Genius. See ya.